The stale air of the international terminal smelled like burned coffee and exhaustion. I tugged my carry-on, my heels clicking a frantic rhythm against the polished floor that matched my heartbeat. 1 year, 12 months, 365 days of video calls with bad connections, of missing first days of school, of sending presents that felt like pathetic stand-ins for a mother's presence. The guilt was a physical weight in my chest, a constant, nagging companion I'd tried to silence with hard work and wire transfers. $30,000 a month, every single month, like clockwork, to the joint account David and I shared, with explicit instructions for him to use it for Leo, for the house, for them. It was my penance, my offering, my desperate attempt to buy my son's comfort in my absence. My phone buzzed as I cleared customs. David, welcome home. Beautiful. Can't wait to see you. Listen, the family's throwing you a surprise welcome party at Mom and Dad's. Why don't you head straight there from the airport? I'll meet you. We've got everything set up here. Leo's so excited. A smile broke through my fatigue. A surprise party at his parents' house. The Kingston estate in Mount Pleasant was always the venue for family functions. A part of me wanted to go straight to our own little house in the old village, to collapse on my own couch with my son. But this was sweet. This was family. This was them trying. Me. That sounds amazing. Tell Leo I'm coming. Be there in 45. I hailed a cab, giving the driver the address on Shellring Lane. The familiar Spanish moss-draped oaks blurred past as we crossed the Ravenel Bridge into the suburb. My mind raced with images of Leo. He'd be 7 now. Was he taller? Had he lost more teeth? Did he still sleep with that tattered elephant toy? I clutched my phone, scrolling through the last photos David had sent at a blurry picture of Leo at what looked like a birthday party 2 months ago. Another of him holding a science project. Never any videos lately. David said Leo was shy on camera. The cab crunched up the long, manicured driveway of the Kingston home. The white columned facade was imposing as ever, a testament to Robert Kingston's real estate success and Clarice's relentless social ambitions. Several cars were already there, including David's BMW and his brother Michael's obnoxious red Porsche. I took a deep breath, smoothing my travel-wrinkled blazer. The guilt twisted again. I'd missed so much, but I was here now. The big deal in Singapore was closed. My firm's Asia-Pacific expansion was secure, and I was home for good. I could make it up to them. To Leo, I didn't bother ringing the bell. Just pushed the heavy front door open. Surprise! The shout was loud. A chorus of familiar voices. There they were. David, looking handsome and slightly flushed, holding a glass of bourbon. His parents, Robert and Clarice, standing regally by the grand staircase. Michael and his wife, Tiffany, with their son, Ethan. My eyes scanned the small crowd frantically. Where was he? Leo, I called out, my smile faltering. David stepped forward, pulling me into a hug that felt stiff. He's around here somewhere. Playing shy, he said into my hair, his breath smelling of expensive whiskey. Let's get you a drink first. You must be wiped out. He guided me further into the marble foyer. Clarice air-kissed my cheek, her perfume cloying. Zoe, darling, you look tired. All that traveling. Her gaze swept over my practical pantsuit with thinly veiled disapproval. It's good to be back, I said, my eyes still darting around the opulent living room, the formal dining room visible through an archway. No small boy hiding behind curtains. Where's my son? Probably off with his video games. Michael said with a dismissive wave. Kids today, right? Glued to screens. Ethan, say hello to your Aunt Zoe. That's when I really looked at Ethan. My nephew, a year older than Leo, stood beside his mother, Tiffany. He was dressed like a miniature Ralph Lauren model. A crisp polo shirt, tailored shorts, pristine leather loafers. His blonde hair was perfectly trimmed. He held a sleek, new tablet in one hand. Hello, Aunt Zoe, he said politely, but his eyes were on his screen. Hey, "Ethan, you look very handsome." My compliment was automatic. My heart was starting to hammer an uncomfortable rhythm. Something was off. The air in the room felt thick with a secret I hadn't been letting on. He just had a fitting for the country club junior cotillion. Tiffany beamed, stroking Ethan's hair. "He's going to be the lead escort." "That's lovely," I said, the words tasting like ash. I turned to David, my voice low but firm. "David, where is Leo?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I told you, honey, he's probably out back. He likes to play in the garden. Let's not make a scene in front of everyone." A scene, the warning was clear. I was the one being difficult, the traveling mother coming home and causing trouble. Robert cleared his throat. "David's right. Zoe, the boy has his own ways. Independent. He'll come in when he smells food. Clarice has the caterers setting up on the patio for your party." "Party. Right. My welcome home party. Where was the guest of honor's child?" "I'm going to find him," I stated, no longer asking. I placed my carry-on by the console table and walked purposefully through the sprawling house toward the kitchen and the back doors. I heard David's footsteps behind me. "Zoe, come on. Don't do this. Everyone's here for you." I ignored him, pushing open the French doors to the expansive, meticulously landscaped backyard. A team of caterers was indeed setting up a linen-draped table by the pool. There was no sign of a 7-year-old boy. My eyes swept past the pool, the rose garden Clarice was so proud of, the manicured lawn. At the very far end of the property, nestled against a line of live oaks, was an old garden shed. It was a weathered, wooden structure, barely visible through the foliage, a place for lawnmowers and forgotten tools. A cold dread, sharp and absolute, settled in my stomach. "Zoe, seriously," David said, catching my arm. "He's fine. Come back inside." I shook him off with a strength that surprised both of us. "Is he in there?" I asked, my voice terrifyingly calm as I pointed to the shed. David's face went pale. "What? No, of course not. Why would he be in there? It's dirty. It's full of spiders." But he didn't look at the shed. He looked at his shoes. I started walking, my sensible heels sinking into the soft grass. The distance to the shed seemed to stretch for miles. Behind me, I heard David hiss, "God damn it, Zoe," but he didn't follow. The shed door was warped, hanging slightly ajar on rusty hinges. The paint, if there ever was any, had long since peeled away. I pushed it open, the wood groaning in protest. The smell hit me first. Damp earth, mildew, and something sour. And there, in a sliver of dusty light from a grimy window, sat my son, Leo. He was huddled on the dirt floor, his back against an old, rusted wheelbarrow. He wasn't playing. He wasn't on a tablet. He was slowly, methodically, picking at a piece of bread. Even in the dim light, I could see the fuzzy, greenish patches of mold covering it. He was so thin, his clothes at a faded, too small t-shirt with a cartoon character I knew he'd outgrown 2 years ago, and shorts that were frayed at the hem that hung off his narrow frame. His hair was long, shaggy, and dirty, but it was his eyes that shattered the last remaining piece of my heart. They were downcast, vacant, as if he'd retreated so far inside himself that the outside world didn't matter. "Leo." The name came out as a choked whisper. He flinched, as if expecting a blow, and slowly lifted his head. For a long moment, there was no recognition, just the weary gaze of a child who had learned not to hope for much. Then, something flickered, a slow, painful dawn. "Mommy?" It was a tiny, rusty sound, the sound of a voice not often used. I crossed the filthy space in 2 strides and dropped to my knees in the dirt, not caring about the grime or the spiders David had mentioned. I gathered him into my arms. He felt fragile, all sharp angles and bird-like bones. He smelled of unwashed hair and that sour, moldy bread. "Baby. Oh, my baby boy. What are you doing in here?" I rocked him, my tears falling into his matted hair. He just buried his face in my neck, his small hands clutching the fabric of my blazer. I was hungry. He mumbled, so softly I almost didn't hear it. Hungry. In a house where caterers were setting up a feast. In a family where his cousin wore designer clothes and held a brand new tablet. A fury, white hot and more profound than any anger I had ever known, ignited in my core. It burned away the guilt, the jet lag, the confusion. It left behind a cold, crystalline clarity. I stood up, lifting Leo with me. He was late, too late for a boy his age. I carried him out of the shed, into the blinding late afternoon sun. David was standing halfway across the lawn, watching us, a strange mix of defiance and fear on his face. Clarice, Robert, Michael, and Tiffany had now come out onto the patio. They formed a silent, staring tableau against the backdrop of crystal glasses and canapes. I walked toward them, my son clinging to me. I didn't look at David. I looked straight at my mother-in-law, Clarice, whose mouth was a tight, disapproving line. He was in the shed, I said, my voice carrying across the lawn, clear and hard, eating moldy bread. Clarice sniffed. He wanders off. He's a peculiar child. We give him perfectly good food in the kitchen, but he takes it and hides, like a little animal. Her words were a physical blow. I tightened my hold on Leo. David finally found his voice. See, Zoe, it's not our fault. He's difficult. He doesn't like to be around people. That's why I didn't send more pictures. He'd throw a fit. I looked at my husband of 9 years, the man I'd built a life with, the man I'd trusted with our most precious thing. Difficult, I repeated flatly. I looked down at Leo, who was now watching the adults, his body tense. He's 7, and he's hungry. I turned my gaze back to the group. While Ethan is being fitted for cotillion, while you're throwing a party with caterers, Robert stepped forward, his patriarchal authority on full display. Now, Zoe, let's not be dramatic. The boy is fine, a little thin. Perhaps. He's always been a picky eater. You've been gone a long time. You don't understand the dynamic. The dynamic? I laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. The dynamic where my son is neglected in a tool shed while his cousin is treated like a prince? The dynamic where the $30,000 I sent every single month for him apparently didn't buy him a decent meal or a haircut. That landed. Michael had the decency to look away. Tiffany pulled Ethan closer. David's face flushed red. That money, David started, his voice defensive. It goes into the family account. It supports the whole household. My parents, they help with Leo. Thesis your help? I cut him off, shifting Leo so he could see them all. Locking him in a shed? No one locked him anywhere. Clarice snapped. He goes there himself. We can't be expected to watch him every second. You chose to leave. Zoe, you chose your career over being a mother. These are the consequences. Her verbal knife, aimed with surgical precision at my deepest insecurity, didn't find its mark this time. The sight of my son, the feel of his frail body in my arms, had armored me. I chose to secure our family's future. I said, my voice deadly quiet, and I entrusted you with our present. That trust is now revoked. I turned, Leo in my arms, and began walking back toward the house, toward the front door, toward my carry-on and the cab that might still be idling. Zoe, where the hell do you think you're going? David shouted, striding after me. This is your welcome party. I didn't stop walking. It's not my party. David, it's your cover story. You didn't want me going to our house first. You wanted me to see the perfect family tableau first. You just didn't plan on me looking behind the curtain. I reached the foyer, grabbed my bag one-handed, and shouldered the front door open. If you walk out that door, you're choosing to blow up this family. David yelled from behind me, his voice cracking with rage and panic. I paused on the threshold. I looked back at him, at the family gathered behind him in the grand hallway, their faces a mask of shock, indignation, and fear. No, David, I said, my voice finally breaking with the weight of it all. You did that the day you decided my son was worth less than your pride, your family's image, and my money. I walked out into the Charleston twilight, holding my son close, the door to the Kingston mansion swinging shut on the life I thought I had. The battle lines were drawn, and I had just found my reason to fight. The cab was gone. I stood on the immaculate driveway, the sinking sun casting long shadows from the live oaks, Leo shivering slightly in my arms despite the warm southern air. I fumbled for my phone, my hands trembling with a cocktail of rage and adrenaline. "Zoe, be reasonable." David's voice boomed from the doorway. He'd followed me out, but stopped on the porch as if crossing the threshold would mean admitting defeat. Reasonable. I spat the word over my shoulder, my thumb jabbing at my rideshare app. My account was logged out. Of course, I'd been using a Singapore SIM for a year. My son was eating moldy bread in a tool shed. "David, define reasonable for me. You're not seeing the full picture," he pleaded, his tone shifting from anger to a wheedling persuasion I knew too well. "Just come back inside. Let's talk about this as a family. You're jet-lagged. You're emotional. Don't." I cut him off, my voice low and dangerous. I turned to face him fully, still cradling Leo, who had gone completely still and silent against my shoulder. "Don't you dare tell me I'm emotional. This isn't about my emotions. This is about facts. Where is the money, David? The $30,000 a month. Where did it go?" He faltered, his eyes, that handsome hazel I'd once found so trustworthy, darted away from mine. It's in our account. It's been used for household expenses, for Leo's needs." "What needs?" I demanded, my voice rising. What specific need for my son was met by locking him in a damp shed? Was that a new educational experience? A survivalist summer camp I didn't approve? He wasn't locked in. David shouted, his composure cracking. "Jesus, Zoe, you're twisting everything. He likes it out there. He's a strange kid. He doesn't fit in with the other kids at the club. He's quiet. He's antisocial. We didn't know what to do with him." Every word was a fresh betrayal. My grip tightened on Leo. "You didn't know what to do with him. He's 7. He's a child. Your child. Our child. And you left him." He fired back, a vicious triumph in his eyes, as if he'd been waiting to play this card. "For a whole year, you chose spreadsheets in Singapore over bedtime stories here. So don't come back acting like Mother of the Year, judging us for how we managed." The guilt, he aimed for hit, but it didn't stick. It burned up in the hotter fire of what I was seeing, what I was holding. "I left to build a future for us," I said, each word measured. "And I paid dearly to ensure he was cared for in the present. Apparently, I paid for Ethan's cotillion fittings and Michael's Porsche payments instead." The front door opened again. Clarice stepped out, a cashmere wrap around her shoulders despite the heat, her posture rigid. "Zoe, this is becoming a spectacle. The neighbors, please, lower your voice and come inside. We can discuss this like civilized people." "Civilized people don't starve children," I said, meeting her icy gaze. Her face tightened. "That is a disgusting exaggeration. The child is fed. He is willful and rejects proper meals. We're not miracle workers." "Where's his room?" "Clarice?" I asked suddenly. "In your house. Where does my son sleep when he's here?" A beat of silence. David and his mother exchanged a fleeting glance. He has a space," David said evasively. "A space. Show me. Right now. This is ridiculous." Clarice sniffed. "He sleeps in the guest room." "Of course. Which guest room? The blue one overlooking the garden? The yellow one by the stairs?" Another pause, heavier this time. "The nanny's quarters," Robert Kingston said, emerging from the house to stand beside his wife. His voice was the calm, authoritative boom of a boardroom. "It's a perfectly serviceable room. We converted it after Margarita left. It has its own bathroom. The nanny's quarters," I repeated, the picture becoming horrifyingly clear. "In the back, by the laundry room. The windowless box. It has a window," David muttered defensively, a slit looking at the AC unit. I looked at Leo. His eyes were squeezed shut, He'd heard all this before. And where does Ethan sleep when he's here? Ethan has the blue room, Tiffany said, appearing in the doorway, her voice sharp. He's the eldest grandson, and he doesn't. Heidi in sheds. The comparison, the utter lack of empathy, was the final straw. A car turned into the driveway, a sleek Blacktown car. My ride. Thank God. We're leaving, I said, adjusting Leo and striding toward the car. Zoe, stop. David jogged down the steps, blocking my path to the car. The driver, a middle-aged man with a wary expression, rolled down his window. Ma'am? Order for Kingston residents? Yes, I said, my eyes locked on David. We're leaving. You can't just take him, David said, his voice dropping into a threatening register. That's my son, too. You have no right to just whisk him away. Watch me. I'll call the police. I'll tell them you're kidnapping him after being absent for a year. How do you think that will look? The threat hung in the air, cold and calculated. He was right. In the eyes of a court. In the eyes of a small-town South Carolina police department who knew the Kingston name. A mother who'd been overseas for a year, suddenly snatching her son from his father's family home, could be framed very badly. I stopped. I looked at my husband, really looked at him, the man I'd shared a bed with, built dreams with. Now he was using our child as a pawn, leveraging the system against me. You do what you have to do, David, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. But first, I want to see our bank statements. Right now. On your phone. The joint account where my wire transfers landed. He blinked, thrown off by the shift. What? Why? Because if you're going to accuse me of being an unfit mother, I'm going to demonstrate what an unfit father and guardian looks like. I want to see what household expenses for Leo cost $30,000 a month. He hesitated, his confidence wavering. I don't have that on me. Then log in. Or are you afraid to show me where my money really went? To Michael's business ventures? To the country club fees? To Tiffany's shopping sprees at Saks? From the porch, Michael finally spoke, his voice a low growl. Leave my wife out of this. Zoe. Or what? Michael? I shot back, the dam of polite Southern belle completely broken. You'll have me locked in the shed too? The driver cleared his throat. Ma'am, I need to know if this is a secure pickup. It is, I said, not breaking eye contact with David. We're getting in this car. You can follow us to the police station if you want. We can all explain to them why my son, who lives in this multi-million-dollar home, was found alone, dirty, and eating rotten food in an outbuilding. I'm sure the local news would love that human interest story. Kingston family values. Clarice gasped. Robert's face turned to stone. Public scandal was their kryptonite. David saw it too, the flinch in his father's stance, the panic in his mother's eyes. His leverage was crumbling. Fine, he hissed, stepping aside. Take him. Be dramatic. But this isn't over. Zoe, not by a long shot. You walk away now. You're choosing war. I opened the car door and slid into the cool leather back seat with Leo. I looked up at my husband, his face twisted with anger and fear. War was declared the moment you decided my son was expendable, I said quietly. I'm just showing up for the fight. I pulled the door shut. Drive. Please. Any hotel downtown. The Dewberry, if they have a room. As the car pulled away, the last thing I saw was the Kingston family, a united, furious front on their perfect porch, watching us go. I held Leo closer, feeling the frantic beat of his heart against my chest. It's okay, baby, I whispered into his hair, my tears finally falling. Mommy's here. I'm so sorry. I'm here now. He didn't speak. He just clung to me, his thin fingers gripping my blazer like it was a lifeline. The hotel was an oasis of calm, modern luxury. The clerk, a young woman with a sympathetic smile, took one look at my tear-streaked face and Leo's condition and upgraded us to a suite without asking. Inside, with the door locked and the chain engaged, I finally let myself crumble. I sat on the edge of the king-size bed, sobbing, while Leo stood frozen in the middle of the ornate rug, staring at the lavish surroundings as if they were from another planet. After a few minutes, I forced myself to get up. I ran a bath, using the hotel's expensive bath milk. Gently, I helped Leo out of his filthy clothes. His ribs were visible, a map of neglect under pale skin. There were a few faint, yellowish bruises on his arms, the kind that come from clumsy bumps. Maybe, but my mind, now a dark and suspicious place, cataloged them. He didn't speak as I washed his hair, the water turning gray. He just watched me with those huge, haunted eyes. Once he was clean, wrapped in a fluffy hotel robe 100 times too big for him. I ordered room service, grilled cheese, tomato soup, chocolate milk, simple, comforting food. While we waited, I sat cross-legged on the floor in front of him. Leo, sweetheart, I said, my voice raw, can you tell me, how often did you stay in the shed? He looked down at the carpet, picking at the robe's belt. A long minute passed. When they had company, he whispered finally, or when Aunt Tiffany and Ethan came over. Nana said I was disruptive. Disruptive, the word cut deep. And the bread? Sometimes Cook gave me food to take. But if I stayed in my room, Ethan would find me and take it. The shed. It was quiet. A 7-year-old seeking quiet in a tool shed to protect his meager food from his cousin. The image made me physically ill. Where's your stuff? Honey? Your toys? Your books? The elephant, Mr. Trunks? He shrugged. A small, heartbreaking gesture. Ethan has most of it. He said they were hand-me-downs because he's bigger. Mr. Trunks. He got ripped. Daddy said he was too old for it anyway. The room service arrived. Leo ate slowly at first, then with a ravenous intensity that confirmed every terrible suspicion. He finished the entire grilled cheese and 2 bowls of soup. As he drank the chocolate milk, some color finally returned to his cheeks. My phone, charging on the nightstand, buzzed incessantly. David, Clarice, Robert, then David again, then an unknown number, likely a Kingston family lawyer. I ignored them all. There was only one person I could trust. I dialed. It rang 3 times before a familiar, no-nonsense voice answered. Zoe, that you? Heard you were landing today. How was Singapore? Sophia, I said, and my voice broke completely. I need you. I need a lawyer. And I need a friend. Right now. There was a pause on the other end. Then the sound of a chair scraping back. Where are you? The Dewberry. Suite 614. I'm on my way. Don't talk to anyone until I get there. An hour later, Sophia Grant, my college roommate and the fiercest family law attorney in Charleston, swept into the suite. She took in the scene in one practiced glance. Me, shell-shocked on the sofa. Leo, asleep now in the massive bed, swallowed by pillows, the remains of our meal. Start from the beginning, she said, shrugging off her blazer and pulling out a legal pad. And leave nothing out. I told her everything. The monthly transfers, the surprise party, Ethan's perfect outfit, the shed, the moldy bread, the nanny's quarters, David's threats, the bruises on Leo's arms. Sophia listened, her expression growing grimmer with each detail. She asked sharp, precise questions. She didn't flinch when I cried. When I finished, she put down her pen. Okay, first, we need a doctor. Tomorrow morning. We need to document his physical state. Malnutrition. The bruises. Everything. That's priority 1. I know a pediatrician who is discreet and thorough. She'll write a report that will stand up in court. I nodded, numb. Second, we need to get into your financials. All of them. You said joint accounts? Yes. At First Carolina. I have online access. But David might have moved things. Changed passwords. We'll need to go to the bank in person. With ID and your marriage certificate. First thing Monday. She looked at me. You realize what this is, right? This is financial abuse. This is potential child neglect. This is a massive, calculated betrayal. I know. I whispered. David's threat about calling the police. It's a bluff, but we have to treat it as real. You have equal rights to Leo, and given the circumstances you've described, a judge would likely see removing him from that environment as protective, not kidnapping. But we need to get ahead of it. We file for emergency temporary custody first thing Monday. And the money? I asked, the practical part of my brain, the part that had closed the Singapore deal, finally re-engaging. Sophia's eyes were hard. We follow the money. Zoe, 30,000 a month doesn't just vanish. If it was used to fund Michael's failing business or a lavish lifestyle for them while your son was. She glanced at the sleeping boy, her jaw tightening, that while that happened, it changes everything. It's not just a marital dispute. It's fraud. It's possibly criminal. My phone buzzed again on the coffee table. David's face flashed on the screen. Sophia looked at it. You don't have to answer, but if you want to, put it on speaker. And don't say a word unless I tell you to. I picked up the phone, took a steadying breath, and answered, David. Zoe. Thank God. His voice was different now, strained, conciliatory. The threatening tone was gone. Look, baby, I'm so sorry. About earlier. I was shocked. We all were. You came in guns blazing. We reacted badly. I said nothing. Sophia gave me a slow, deliberate nod. We need to talk. Properly. Just you and me. This is our family. We can fix this. Please, come home. To our house. Let's talk. Leo needs his mom and his dad. Sophia scribbled on her pad and held it up. Ask about the money. Where's the money? David? I asked. My voice flat. A pause. What? The $360,000 I wired over the past year. Show me the statements. Show me the receipts for what it bought for Leo. Then we can talk. The silence on the other end was profound. I could almost hear him thinking, scrambling. It's complicated. Zoe, the account. There were family obligations. My parents helped so much with Leo. It was only right to help them too. Michael's firm hit a rough patch. We had to. So you admit it. I cut in. Sophia's eyes gleaming with satisfaction. You used the money I sent for our son to bail out your brother and fund your parents' lifestyle. It's family money. He exploded, the conciliatory mask slipping. You were gone. You don't get to dictate how we survived here. We did what we had to do. And Leo was fine. He's always been a difficult, weird little kid. That's not our fault. Every word was a nail in the coffin of our marriage. I'm done talking. David, all further communication will go through my lawyer. Your lawyer? You lawyered up already? Jesus. Zoe, you're going to nuke our lives over a misunderstanding? A misunderstanding? I repeated, my calm terrifying even to me. You starved and neglected our child. You stole from me. There is no misunderstanding. There's only evidence. And I'm going to find every last piece of it. I hung up. Sophia let out a low whistle. Well, he just gave us a very nice admission on record. Family money. We did what we had to do. A jury will eat that up. She stood, gathering her things. Get some sleep. Zoe, what little you can. Tomorrow, the war starts in earnest. We see the doctor. We secure your assets. We file papers. She walked over to the bed and looked down at Leo, her professional mask softening for a moment. And we get this little guy everything he needs to be a kid again. After she left, I crawled into bed, next to Leo, careful not to wake him. I watched the slow, even rise and fall of his chest. The fury was still there, a hot coal in my gut, but alongside it now was a cold, clear purpose. David wanted a war. He had no idea who he was fighting for, and he had no idea who he was fighting against. I was no longer just Zoe, the accommodating wife, the absent mother trying to make up for her guilt. I was Leo's mother, and I would burn their perfect, polished world to the ground to keep him safe. The pediatrician's office smelled like antiseptic and forced cheer. Dr. Anya Sharma had Sophia's no-nonsense energy and eyes that missed nothing. I sat in a plastic chair, clutching a coffee I hadn't touched. while she examined Leo in the next room. Through the closed door, I heard her murmurs, gentle and professional, and Leo's monosyllabic answers. Sophia sat beside me, tapping out emails on her phone. Bank opens in an hour. I've already called ahead. Spoke to a branch manager I trust. They'll be ready for us. I nodded, my stomach a knot of dread. What if? What if he's already emptied it? Then we have evidence of dissipation of marital assets, she said without looking up, which, given the circumstances of child neglect, looks even worse for him. But he's not that smart. Arrogant men like David think they're entitled. They don't cover their tracks because they don't think they'll ever get caught. The door opened. Dr. Sharma emerged, her expression carefully neutral. Leo followed, holding a lollipop she'd given him. He looked smaller than ever in the paper gown. Zoe, Dr. Sharma said, gesturing me into her private office. Sophia followed. Leo sat quietly in the waiting area, absorbed in the lollipop. Please, sit. We sat. She didn't mince words. Leo is severely underweight for his age and height. He's in the 3rd percentile. He shows signs of prolonged nutritional deficiency. Brittle hair. Pale conjunctiva. Fatigue. The bruises on his arms and shins are in various stages of healing. They're consistent with minor trauma, but the pattern and number suggest a lack of supervision, possibly frequent minor accidents or... She paused, choosing her words carefully. A physically careless environment. He was found in a tool shed. I said, my voice thick, with old machinery. Dr. Sharma's lips pressed into a thin line. She nodded. That tracks. More concerning are the psychological indicators. He's nonverbal when not directly addressed. Shows signs of social withdrawal and flat affect. When I asked about his home, his favorite foods, his friends, he became mute. This is indicative of significant emotional neglect and possibly trauma. A cold wave washed over me. The guilt was back, sharp and suffocating. I had done this. My absence, my trust, had allowed this. This is not your fault. Zoe, Dr. Sharma said, as if reading my mind. This is the fault of the caregivers on the ground. You provided the resources. They failed in their duty. Spectacularly, she slid a folder across the desk. My full report. It's detailed, clinical, and damning. Sophia, you'll find everything you need here for a custody petition. I've also documented my recommendation for immediate therapeutic intervention to a child psychologist specializing in trauma and a nutritionist. Thank you, Anya, Sophia said, taking the folder. We'll need you available for a deposition whenever you need me. Outside, the bright Charleston morning felt like an insult. Leo slipped his hand into mine, a tentative gesture that nearly broke me. His small fingers were sticky from the lollipop. Okay, buddy? I asked softly. He nodded, not looking at me. The doctor was nice. Yes, she was. The drive to First Carolina Bank was short and silent. The branch was one of those old Southern ones with polished brass and hushed tones. The manager, a man in his 50s named Mr. Higgins with a kind face and worried eyes, met us at the door. Ms. Grant, Mrs. Kingston, he said, ushering us into a private office. I must say, this is highly unusual. Joint account access typically requires both parties, or a court order. We're not here to make withdrawals today, Mr. Higgins, Sophia said smoothly, setting her briefcase on the table. We're here for a full audit of transaction history for the accounts listed under Zoe and David Kingston, going back 13 months. My client has reason to believe her signature has been forged and funds have been misappropriated. As a joint account holder, she has every right to this information. Mr. Higgins paled slightly. Forged? That's a very serious allegation. It's a very serious situation, I said, finding my voice. I pulled out my passport, driver's license, and a copy of our marriage certificate. You can verify my identity. The wire transfers originated from my Singapore business account. The memos on every single one read, for Leo's care and household. I need to see where that money went. He looked at the documents, then at Sophia's steely gaze, the threat of legal action, of scandal involving a prominent family, hung in the air. Bankers hated scandal. Very well, he sighed, turning to his computer. Let me pull up the records. The numbers that flashed on the screen stole the air from my lungs. The account, which should have held a balance of well over $350,000 for my transfers alone, plus our existing savings, showed a current balance of $8.740, 2.19. Scroll through the transactions, Sophia commanded. Mr. Higgins did. It was a horrifying ledger of betrayal. Monthly wire incoming, $30.000.00 memo. For Leo's care/household. And then, like clockwork, the outflows. Transfer to Kingston Family Holdings, LLC. $15.000.00. Transfer to M. Kingston Consulting. $10.000.00. Withdrawal cash. $3.000.00. Payment Charleston Country Club. $1.200.00. Payment Saks Fifth Avenue. $850. Payment Portia Financial Services. $1.450.00. Over and over. Every month. My money for my son. Siphoned off. The cash withdrawals were always just under the reporting threshold. Clever. Kingston Family Holdings? I asked, my voice trembling. That's Robert and Clarice's investment vehicle. Mr. Higgins stammered, clearly uncomfortable. And Kingston Consulting? Michael Kingston. I believe. Then I saw it. Starting 3 months ago. A new pattern. Larger transfers. Transfer to account ending in 8892. $25.000.00. Transfer to account ending in 8892. $25.000.00. That account. I pointed. Who does it belong to? Mr. Higgins clicked. It's a personal account under the name David L. Kingston. He's moving it to a separate personal account, Sophia murmured, preparing for separation. But the worst was yet to come. Mr. Higgins, now fully invested in the detective work, pulled up the signature cards for recent large withdrawals. And there it was, on a form authorizing a $50.000 transfer to David's new personal account 2 months ago, was my signature. It was a good forgery, but it wasn't mine. The loop on my Z was wrong. I'd signed 1,000 documents for the Singapore deal. I knew my own hand. I was in Singapore on this date, I said, pulling up my passport stamps on my phone. I didn't sign this. The room went very quiet. That's bank fraud, Mr. Higgins whispered, a sheen of sweat on his brow. And wire fraud, given the interstate nature of the transfers. We'll need certified copies of all these statements, Sophia said, her voice lethally calm. And we'll be filing a report with your fraud department. Today, my phone buzzed in my purse. An unknown number. I silenced it. It buzzed again immediately. And again. Excuse me, I muttered, stepping out into the hushed lobby. Hello, is this Zoe Kingston? A woman's voice. Low, educated, with a hint of a tremor. Who is this? My name is Elise. Elise Chambers. I think we have a mutual problem. His name is David. The world tilted. I leaned against a cold marble pillar. What do you want? To talk. To help. I have information. About the money. About his family. About other things. She took a shaky breath. I was involved with David. For almost 2 years. It ended badly. I know things. Zoe. Things that can help you. A mistress. My husband had a mistress. The revelation should have leveled me. But after the last 24 hours, it just felt like another piece of grotesque trivia. Of course he did. Why would you help me? Because he promised me things. He lied to me too. And now his brother Michael is threatening me. I want him to go down. All of them. Her voice hardened. I'm tired of being scared. Sophia emerged from the office, a thick folder in her hand. She raised an eyebrow at my expression. Meet me. I heard myself say to Elise. Somewhere public. Send me the details. You'll come alone? No. I'll have my lawyer. If you're serious, you'll understand. A pause. Fine. The coffee shop on Market Street. By the old market. Noon tomorrow. Don't tell David. I hung up. Sophia was at my side. Who was that? A ghost from David's past. I said, my voice hollow, with a grudge and information. We're meeting her tomorrow. Sophia's eyes narrowed. Calculating. Good. Corroborating witnesses are gold. She hefted the folder. This is also gold. This is your first strike. We're not going to wait for Monday. We're filing the emergency custody petition and a motion to freeze the marital assets today. A judge will see this bank fraud, coupled with Dr. Sharma's report, and grant us an ex parte order. David won't see it coming. Back at the hotel, with Leo watching cartoons, I tried to process it all. The forgery, the empty accounts, the mistress. My phone buzzed again, but this time with a text from a number I knew. David, Zoe, we need to talk. This has gone too far. I'm at our house, the one we bought. Come here. Let's be adults. I showed it to Sophia. Don't go, she said immediately. I have to, I said, a strange certainty settling over me. I need to see his face when he doesn't have an audience. I need to hear what he says when he's not performing for his parents. It's a trap. He'll try to manipulate you, record you, maybe even try to take Leo. Leo stays here with you, I said, and you'll be on speakerphone in my pocket. I want a witness. I want it on record. Sophia considered it, then nodded slowly. Okay, but you walk in. You state your terms. You get out. Do not engage in a debate. You're not there to fix anything. You're there to declare the new reality. Our house in the old village was a quaint, historic cottage I'd fallen in love with. Now, as I pulled up, it looked like a stage set for a life that never really existed. David opened the door before I could knock. He looked terrible, unshaven, eyes bloodshot. The charm was gone, replaced by a raw, desperate energy. Zoe, thank you for coming. He stepped back to let me in. The house was spotless, too spotless, like it had been staged for sale. There were no photos of Leo on the mantel anymore. My books were gone from the shelves. Where are my things, David? In storage, he said, waving a hand dismissively. Look, that's not important. We need to fix this. I talked to my parents. We overreacted. We were stressed. Leo is a handful. You have to understand that. I didn't sit down. I stayed, standing in the center of the living room, my hand in my pocket, my phone live to Sophia's ear. A handful. I repeated. Yes. He's quiet. Then he has these outbursts. He breaks things. He doesn't listen. My parents are older. They couldn't chase him around. The shed. It was a timeout space. For his own safety. The lies were so facile, so rehearsed. He was eating moldy bread. David. He took it himself. We didn't force him. He ran a hand through his hair. Look, I'm sorry about the money. Okay, I'm sorry. Michael's business was about to go under. My parents were going to lose their standing at the club. We were trying to hold the family together while you were off playing CEO. I was under pressure. So you stole from me and forged my name. He flinched. I didn't. It wasn't like that. It's our money. I had a right. You had no right to put your brother's business over your son's well-being. He was fine, David shouted, his composure shattering. God, you are so obsessed with this victim narrative. He's fine. A little skinny. Big deal. Kids are resilient. Is that what your lawyer is telling you to say? I asked quietly. That kids are resilient? Did he also tell you that bank fraud and forgery are federal offenses? That child neglect documented by a pediatrician tends to sway judges? All the color drained from his face. You saw a doctor? This morning. The report is with my lawyer, along with the bank records. The forgeries. David, did you think I wouldn't notice? He stared at me, his breathing ragged. The mask was completely off now. I saw pure, unadulterated panic. And hatred. You bitch. He whispered. You scheming, selfish bitch. You leave for a year, then come back and try to destroy my family? My life? You destroyed it yourself. I said, turning toward the door. I'm just here to sort through the wreckage. All communication goes through Sophia Grant. Don't come near me or Leo. He's my son. He roared, lunging to block the door. You can't keep him from me. I'll fight you in court. I'll drag your name through the mud. I'll tell everyone what a cold, absent mother you are. I'll get custody, and you'll be paying me. I stood my ground, looking up at him. No fear left in me. Do your worst, David, but know this. I have the bank fraud. I have the medical neglect. And by the time you're served with papers later today, a judge will have frozen every account you've touched. How are you going to pay your lawyer when your Porsche payments are due? The shock on his face was the most satisfying thing I'd seen in a year. The invincible David Kingston. Realizing the walls were closing in, I stepped around him and opened the door. This isn't over. He yelled after me as I walked to my rental car. Yes, it is, I said, not looking back. The marriage is over. The lie is over. The only thing just beginning is the reckoning. As I drove away, my hand steady on the wheel, I could hear Sophia's voice, faint from my pocket. Well done, Zoe. Now, let's go burn their world down. The Market Street coffee shop was a cacophony of tourists and locals. The smell of roasted beans and sugar hanging thick in the humid air. Sophia and I took a corner table with our backs to the wall. A habit, she said, came from practicing family law for too long. She'll be late, Sophia predicted, checking her watch. People offering secrets like to make an entrance. But at exactly noon, a woman walked in. She was in her early 30s, pretty in a faded, anxious way, with ash blonde hair pulled into a messy bun. She wore oversized sunglasses and kept glancing at the door. Elise Chambers, she scanned the room, spotted us, and hesitated before weaving through the tables. Zoe? She asked, her voice barely above the coffee grinder's roar. Sit, Sophia said, not bothering to stand. I'm Sophia Grant, Zoe's attorney. Anything you say can and will be used in legal proceedings. Understood? Elise swallowed hard and slid into the chair. She didn't take off her sunglasses. I understand. A waitress came. We ordered coffees. An awkward silence descended until they arrived. Why now? I asked, stirring my black coffee. David and I have been married for years. You said your affair ended. It ended 6 months ago, Elise said, wrapping her hands around her mug as if for warmth. He ended it, said he was reconciling with you, focusing on his family. A bitter laugh escaped her. I was stupid enough to believe him, until my friend saw you on the news at some Singapore tech summit 3 months later. You weren't reconciling. You were just an excuse. What do you want? Sophia asked, cutting to the chase. Protection, Elise said, her voice gaining a sliver of steel. And I want him to hurt, like he hurt me. He promised me a future. He said you were basically separated, that it was a marriage of convenience. He said he'd leave you once the family finances were settled. My stomach turned. The timing. The money transfers to his personal account starting 3 months ago. He wasn't just preparing for separation. He was preparing to start over. With her. He lied about a lot of things. Elise continued, but he talked when he was drunk, or when he was trying to impress me with how connected he was. She finally took off her sunglasses, revealing tired, intelligent eyes. His brother, Michael. His consulting firm isn't just failing. It's a front. Sophia leaned forward. A front for what? For moving money. Their father, Robert, has some questionable real estate partners. Out-of-state investors who prefer cash. Michael's firm does consulting for these partnerships. The fees are astronomical and in cash. David bragged that they were cleaning it up through the business. Money laundering. The words hung in the air between us, louder than the espresso machine. Do you have proof? Sophia's voice was a razor. Not documents, but I know names. One of them, a guy from Miami, Marco Silva, came to Charleston once. David took me to dinner with him. The guy was all gold chains and threats wrapped in a smile. He talked about volatile assets and keeping the SEC busy. David and Michael laughed like it was a joke. It wasn't. My mind raced, connecting dots. The constant cash withdrawals from our account. The pressure to fund Michael's business. It wasn't just nepotism, it was necessity. They were using my clean, hard-earned money to prop up a dirty operation. And my son? I asked, the question clawing its way out. Did he ever talk about Leo? Elise's face softened with something that looked like genuine pity. He called him the ghost. Said he was a quiet, weird kid who was a drain on his parents. He said his mother, Clarice, thought Leo was damaged, that he reflected poorly on the family. David said it was easier to keep him out of sight when you weren't around. Each word was a lash. The ghost that I closed my eyes, fighting the wave of nausea. Why are you really scared of Michael? Sophia pressed. Elise's bravado cracked. After I confronted David about the lies, about you still being overseas, he got nasty, told me to forget I ever knew him. Then Michael showed up at my apartment. He didn't touch me. He just talked about how fragile reputations are, how accidents happen. He knew where my sister lived, where my mom taught school. It was a warning. He said if I ever spoke about their business, or about David, they'd ruin me. And then he smiled and left. That's witness intimidation. Sophia noted calmly, jotting in her notebook. We can add that to the list. I can't go to the police, Elise whispered, panic rising. Not with just my word against theirs. The Kingstons have friends. You're not going to the police, I said, opening my eyes. Yet, you're going to give Sophia every detail you remember. Names, dates, places, amounts, everything. And you're going to sign an affidavit. And in return, Sophia said, you get to be a cooperating witness, not a target. We'll keep your name out of the initial filings if we can. And when the time comes, we'll make sure you have protection. But you have to be all in. Elise, no more games. Elise looked from Sophia to me, weighing her desperation against her fear. Finally, she nodded. Okay, I'm in. We spent 2 more hours there. Sophia firing questions. Elise dredging up painful, incriminating memories. The picture that emerged was uglier than I'd imagined. It wasn't just neglect born of indifference. It was systematic exclusion. Leo was an inconvenient reminder of a marriage David resented. A child who didn't fit the golden boy narrative of the Kingston heirs. And my money was the lifeblood of their crumbling, corrupt empire. My phone buzzed as we left the coffee shop. An international number. Singapore. Zoe? It's Marcus Chen. The voice of my former second-in-command on the Asia deal was warm with concern. I just heard rumors that you're back in the States and there's trouble. David Trouble. Marcus. Sharp. Loyal. And discreet. He'd been my rock in Singapore. The one who'd covered for me on the days the guilt over Leo was paralyzing. Marcus. Yeah, it's bad. Do you need anything? I'm still here, finalizing the handover. But I can be on a plane tomorrow. I need information. I said, an idea forming. All the financials for the Singapore project. My compensation package. The bonus structure. The wire transfer confirmations to my U.S. account. Everything that proves the source and the purpose of that income. The purpose? He asked. Confused. I need to prove that money was specifically earned for my family support. That it wasn't just marital income. That it had a tag in it. Marcus was quiet for a moment. You're building a case. I'm fighting for my son. He didn't hesitate. I'll have it all for you. Encrypted. Secure. Within the hour. And Zoe, I'm sorry. I always thought he was a pompous ass. But I didn't think. Neither did I, Marcus. Neither did I. The encrypted files arrived as Sophia and I were back in her office. A modern space with a view of the Cooper River. Leo was with a kind, vetted sitter, Sophia, used for clients' children. On her large monitor, we scrolled through the documents Marcus sent. It was all there. My employment contract outlining the hardship assignment and the family support stipend built into the compensation. The bonus clauses tied to project success, and the wire transfer orders. Every single one with the memo line Marcus had helped me insist on. For Leo Kingston Care Support, Sophia let out a low whistle. This is perfect. This ties the funds directly to a specific premarital agreement purpose. Supporting your child during your temporary absence. It turns the forgery and misappropriation from simple marital asset dissipation into something more like fiduciary fraud. He was effectively a trustee of funds for Leo's benefit, and he breached that duty spectacularly. Will a judge care? I asked. The legal nuances, still foggy to me. A family court judge will care very much. It shows intent, pattern, and a direct link between your labor and your child's welfare. It makes David's actions not just sleazy, but predatory. She was drafting the emergency motion when her assistant buzzed in. Ms. Grant, there's a process server here for Mrs. Kingston, and a Mr. David Kingston is in the lobby. He says he needs to speak to his wife. He's insisting. Sophia and I exchanged a look. He'd been served, and he'd come straight here. Guns blazing. Send the process server in for my signature, Sophia said, and tell Mr. Kingston he can wait. We'll see him in 5 minutes. The process server, a bored-looking young man, had me sign for a thick stack of papers. David's opening salvo. I barely glanced at it. A motion to dismiss my not yet filed custody claim. A counterclaim for primary custody based on parental alienation and my abandonment, and a demand for me to vacate the marital home and pay temporary spousal support. The audacity was breathtaking. Ready? Sophia asked, her eyes gleaming with battle lust. We walked out to the sleek, minimalist lobby. David was pacing, the filed papers clutched in his hand. He looked unhinged. You bitch, he snarled. The moment he saw me, ignoring Sophia completely. You filed for custody? You froze my accounts? My own cards were declined at the goddamn gas station. Good, I said, stopping a safe distance away. Now, you know what it feels like to have your resources cut off. They're my resources. Ours. You can't do this. The judge already did, Sophia said coolly. Based on evidence of fraud and concerns for the child's welfare. You should have read the papers you were served. He turned his fury on her. You're the one poisoning her against me. You're a parasite feeding on divorce. I'm an attorney advocating for my client, who happens to have a very strong case. Sophia replied, unfazed. Your forgery skills need work. David, the Z is a dead giveaway. He flushed deep red. I didn't forge anything. She authorized it. From Singapore? I asked. With a pen I didn't have? He was sputtering. Trapped. This is all a misunderstanding. We can fix this. Zoe, call off your attack dog. Let's go to mediation. We can work out a fair split. You can have liberal visitation with Leo. Visitation, the word was a bucket of ice water. He's my son, not a weekend guest. He needs stability. He needs his father. You've been gone a year. The court will see that. The court will see a father who locked his son in a shed and used his support money for sports cars and country club dues. Sophia shot back. Now, if you have nothing constructive to add, my client and I have work to do. David took a step closer, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper meant only for me. You think you're so smart? You have no idea who you're dealing with. My family won't let you do this. We have friends, judges, cops. You're an outsider here. Zoe, you always were. You'll lose. And you'll lose Leo. The threat was clear, ugly, and for the first time since finding Leo in the shed, a thread of real fear wound through my anger. He wasn't just bluffing about a legal fight. He was talking about dirty tricks. I leaned in, meeting his gaze square on. You're right, David. I have no idea who I'm dealing with. Because the man I married would never have done what you did. So I'm not dealing with him anymore. I'm dealing with the stranger who hurt my child. And that stranger, I will destroy him. I turned and walked back toward Sophia's office. My back straight. This isn't over. He yelled after me, his voice echoing in the chic lobby. You'll regret this. You and that dyke lawyer of yours. The door closed behind us, muffling his rage. Sophia didn't react to the slur. She just looked at me, assessing. He's getting desperate, she said. Desperate people make mistakes, and they reach out to other desperate people. What do you mean? I mean Michael. If David is this unraveled, Michael must be in full panic mode. Their cash flow just got cut off. The consulting clients won't like that. She sat at her desk, a new intensity in her eyes. Elisa's information just became 10 times more valuable. We need to find a way to pressure Michael, to get him to turn on David to save his own skin. How? We follow the money. For real. We take what Elise gave us, and we find Marco Silva. We see if the pressure is coming from both ends. She smiled. A predatory thing. Your husband thinks he's playing hardball with family court motions. He doesn't realize the game just moved to a much bigger, much darker field. I looked out the window at the river, the water dark and choppy. I had wanted to fight for my son. I had prepared for a brutal custody battle. But now, it was something else. It was a war for survival against a family with secrets worth killing for. And the only way out was through the darkness they'd tried to hide. Do it, I said, my voice calm. Find Marco Silva. Follow the money. Let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes. The text from my mother came 3 days after David's meltdown at Sophia's office. Mom, we need to talk. Zoe, it's urgent. Can you come by the house? Alone. My mother lived in the same genteel, slightly faded historic district she'd moved to after the divorce, a world away from the Kingstons' Mount Pleasant opulence. Pulling up to the charming but peeling Victorian felt like stepping into a past life. A life before Singapore, before David, before the all-consuming fight I was now in. I left Leo with the sitter again, a sweet retired teacher named Mrs. Higgins, who seemed unfazed by our situation. Take your time, dear, she'd said, bothing my haunt. Leo and I are going to build a fortress out of these pillows. My mother, Eleanor, was waiting in the sunroom, her posture rigid even in her own wicker chair. 2 glasses of iced tea sat sweating on the table between us. She didn't get up to hug me. Sit down. Zoe. I sat. The air was thick with the scent of gardenias and unspoken accusations. I've heard from David. She began, her voice the careful, neutral tone she used for unpleasant topics. I'm sure you have. He's devastated. Zoe, truly. He says you've taken Leo and cut him off completely, that you're making horrible, baseless accusations about his family. I stared at her. Baseless? Mom, I found Leo in a tool shed. He was eating moldy bread. He's severely underweight. The doctor has reports. She waved a hand, a dismissive flick. Children exaggerate. They have imaginations. And you swooping in after a year away. Of course, he'd play up for sympathy. David says the boy has always been dramatic, prone to stories. The betrayal was so profound it stole my breath for a moment. You're taking his side? After what I've told you, I'm trying to be the voice of reason, she said, her composure cracking. You're talking about fraud, Zoe, about going after a well-respected family with lawyers and private investigators. Do you know how this looks? Do you know what people are saying? I don't care what people are saying. Well, I do. She snapped. This is my community too. My friends are asking me questions, embarrassing questions, about you, about Leo, about why you're trying to destroy a good man's reputation. A good man? I laughed, the sound hollow and bitter. A good man who stole from me and neglected his son? He's under a lot of pressure, my mother retorted. That family, they have expectations. You knew that when you married into it. You were gone, Zoe, for a whole year. You left him to handle everything. The child, the household, his family's demands. Maybe he made some poor decisions with money, but that's between a husband and wife. You don't air that dirty laundry in court and call it a crime. The pieces click together with a sickening finality. Her defensiveness, her concern for appearances over truth, the way she was parroting David's phrases. Poor decisions, between husband and wife. He got to you, I said, my voice flat. Didn't he? David, or Clarice. They came to you. What did they say? That I was unstable? That I was trying to take their money? That I was an unfit mother because I worked? My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. She picked at the condensation on her glass. They came by, she admitted quietly. David was so contrite. He brought flowers. He said he missed you, that he was worried about you, that this lawyer of yours, this Sophia, was filling your head with ideas to get a bigger settlement. He said you were using Leo as a pawn. Rage, hot and bright, flashed behind my eyes, and you believed him. He showed me pictures, she said, defensively, of Leo at Christmas, smiling, of him and David at a baseball game. He said the shed was just a playhouse Leo liked, that you took it out of context. And he said if this goes to court, it will be ugly, for all of us, for Leo most of all. So he threatened you, I stated. He made me see reason, she corrected, but her voice wavered. He said he didn't want to fight, but if you persisted, he'd have to bring up your absence, your obsession with your career. He said the court might question your stability as a primary parent. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly on the tile. And what did he offer you, Mom? To make this all go away? To make me see reason? Her silence was answer enough. How much? I pressed, the words tasting like poison. Her cheeks flushed. It wasn't like that. He said he knew my finances were tight since the divorce, that he wanted to help. As a thank you for trying to be a peacemaker, he called it a consulting fee for my wisdom. A consulting fee. My husband was bribing my mother to testify against me. He gave you money, I said. The realization a physical blow. Money he stole from me. Money meant for your grandson's food and clothes. And you took it. It was a gift. She cried, tears finally springing to her eyes. And it's not just that. Zoe, he said, if you drop this, if you agree to shared custody and stop with the fraud accusations, he'd make sure you were taken care of. You could even go back to your job in Singapore. He'd handle everything here. It would be better for everyone. Less messy. I looked at my mother, at the woman who'd raised me to be strong, independent, the woman who'd seethed with quiet fury at her own, less than amicable divorce. And I saw a stranger, a frightened, status-conscious woman who'd chosen the easier, quieter path, paved with my husband's blood money. Leo was eating moldy bread in a shed. I said, each word deliberate and cold, while you were cashing checks from the man who put him there. You don't know that. She sobbed. You're choosing to see the worst. David is a good father. He loves Leo. He doesn't even like Leo. I shouted, the dam breaking. He called him the ghost. His own mother thinks he's damaged. They hid him away like a shameful secret. And you knew. You had to have seen something. You visited. Did you ever once look for him? Really look? Her silence was confirmation. She had seen. She had chosen not to see. The weight of it, the second betrayal, so close on the heels of the first, was crushing. My own mother, my ally, gone. How much? I asked again, my voice now dead and empty. She looked down at her hands. 50,000. I let out a breath that was almost a laugh. 50,000. For your grandson's safety. For my future. For your silence. A bargain. Zoe, please. No. I cut her off. There is no, please. You made your choice. You took his money. You are now a witness for the defense. My lawyer will need to know that. You will be deposed. You will be asked under oath if David Kingston paid you to influence my testimony. Think carefully about your answer. I turned and walked out of the sunroom, out of the house that no longer felt like home. Zoe, she called after me, her voice breaking. I'm your mother. I did what I thought was best for you. I didn't look back. You did what was best for you, I said, and closed the door behind me. Back at the hotel suite, I felt hollowed out. Mrs. Higgins had left, and Leo was asleep, exhausted from a day of fortress building and his first tentative session with the child psychologist Sophia had arranged. The silence was oppressive. My phone buzzed, an unknown number with a Miami area code. Zoe Kingston. The voice was smooth, with a faint Latin accent, not threatening, almost bored. My name is Marco Silva. I believe a mutual acquaintance, Elise Chambers, may have mentioned me. Every nerve ending went on alert. I moved to the balcony, closing the glass door behind me. What do you want? A conversation. I understand you are having some difficulties with the Kingston family. I may have some information that could be mutually beneficial. Why would you help me? A low, humorless chuckle. Let's just say my business arrangement with Michael Kingston has become problematic. His recent financial constraints have made him unreliable. Unreliable partners are bad for business. I prefer to clean up my own messes. You want Michael out of the way. I want the situation contained. Michael, in his desperation, is making noise. Noise attracts attention. I dislike attention. You, Ms. Kingston, are creating a lot of attention for the Kingstons. This could be good for me, or bad. I'd like to steer it toward good. What do you have? I asked, my mind racing. This was the danger Sophia had warned about, but it was also an opportunity. Records, Silva said simply, of cash deliveries, of conversations Michael was foolish enough to have on unencrypted channels. He liked to brag about his clever American lawyer wife who was funding his lifestyle from afar. He found it ironic. The world tilted again. He talked about me, about my money. He talked about the silent partner in Singapore. He considered your wire transfers his operational liquidity. Very careless of him. I have files. I am prepared to send them to you. Anonymously. Of course. And in return, you use them. You bury Michael Kingston legally. A long prison sentence would be ideal. It ensures his silence. It also sends a message to others who might think of being unreliable. The cold, transactional brutality of it was staggering. He was offering me a weapon to destroy my brother-in-law, just to tidy up his own criminal enterprise. And David? I asked. The brother is your concern. My interest ends with Michael. Do we have an understanding? I thought of Leo, sleeping inside, of the moldy bread, of the word ghost. I thought of my mother's betrayal, of the forged signatures. I was already in the darkness. Maybe I had to use the tools it offered. Send the files, I said. A wise choice. Check your secure email. The password will be your son's name and birthday. A gesture of good faith. The line went dead. I stood on the balcony for a long time, the humid Charleston night clinging to my skin. I felt dirty, complicit, but I also felt a grim resolve. David and his family played by their own corrupt rules. To beat them, maybe I had to step onto their playing field. Later, in the silent hotel room, the encrypted files arrived. I opened them with trembling hands. They were worse than I imagined. Spreadsheets detailing cash amounts, dates, coded references to Miami merchandise, and audio files. I put on headphones and hit play. Michael's voice, slurred, laughing. And the best part is, the bitch has no idea. She's over there in Singapore, killing herself for some promotion. And every month, like clockwork, 30 grand lands in the account. David just schemes his cut and passes the rest to me. It's like a goddamn annuity. Another voice, deeper. Silva's, you should be more grateful to your sister-in-law. She is your principal investor. Michael, grateful? Please. She married into this family. Her money is family money. and family takes care of its own. Besides, it's not like she's using it. Kid's fine, quiet, weird little thing, but fine. Eats like a bird anyway. More for us, right? The callousness, the utter, dehumanizing greed. I listened, my tears drying into something hard and cold. He talked about washing the cash through fake invoices. He joked about the SEC. He bragged about the new boat the Singapore slush fund was buying. It was all there, a roadmap to his ruin. I forwarded everything to Sophia with a single line. Our friend from Miami delivered. Her reply was almost immediate. Holy shit. Do not delete. Do not share. This changes everything. We're not just going for custody anymore. The next morning, I had another visitor. Not a process server. Not a hostile relative. Marcus Chin stood in the hotel lobby, a duffel bag over his shoulder and a look of fierce determination on his face. I took a leave of absence. He said simply, before I could speak, the project is stable. You're not. Marcus, you didn't have to. Yes, I did, he said, his dark eyes serious. You were my boss, but you were also my friend. You talked about Leo every day. I saw the pictures. I know who you are. And what that bastard did. He shook his head. No, you need more than a lawyer. You need someone who has your back. I'm good at logistics. I'm good at research. And I'm very good at making problems go away. I was too tired, too emotionally ravaged, to argue. Having him here, a piece of my competent, professional life, felt like a lifeline. Thank you, I said, my voice cracking. Don't thank me yet, he said, following me to the elevator. First, we need to strategize. Sophia filled me in on the call. You're playing with some dangerous people now. This Silva character, he's not helping you out of the goodness of his heart. He's using you as a weapon. The moment you stop being useful, or become a liability, that could change. I know, I said, but it's the only weapon I have. Not the only one, Marcus said, a glint in his eye. You have the truth, and you have me. Now, let's go see the lioness. We have a war to plan. In Sophia's office, with Marcus providing a steady, calming presence, we laid all the cards on the table. My mother's betrayal, Marco Silva's offer, the damning audio files. Sophia listened, her face a mask of concentration. When we finished, she steepled her fingers. Okay, new plan. We go on the offensive. We take Silva's evidence anonymously and we hand it to the FBI. Money laundering, wire fraud, conspiracy. That gets Michael out of our hair and puts the whole family under federal scrutiny. That pressure might make David more willing to deal on the custody front. And my mother? I asked, the wound still fresh. She's a hostile witness. We depose her. We make it clear that if she lies on the stand, she could be charged with perjury. The 50,000 is a bribe. Plain and simple. It might be enough to make her refuse to testify altogether, which is almost as good. And David? Marcus asked. Sophia smiled. David is the weak link. He's not the criminal mastermind. He's the entitled follower. With Michael facing federal charges, with his financial lifeline cut, with his parents in a panic, he'll crack. He'll try to deal. And that's when we own him. She looked at me. But it's risky. Zoe, once we go to the feds, this becomes a much bigger story. The press will get it. Your name, Leo's name, will be out there. There's no going back. I thought of Leo's empty eyes in the shed, of his small voice saying, I was hungry, of David's threat. You're an outsider here. You always were. I was done being on the outside. I was done playing defense. Do it, I said, my voice steady. Release the hounds. Let's see how the mighty Kingstons like it when the walls really start to close in. The game had changed. The custody battle was now the least of their worries. We were no longer just fighting for a child. We were fighting for justice. And for the first time, I felt the tide turning in our favor. The darkness they'd hidden in was about to be flooded with light. The air in the federal courthouse was cold enough to raise goosebumps on my arms. Or maybe it was just the ice in David's stare from across the aisle. He sat flanked by his attorney, a silver-haired shark named Richard Vance, and his father, Robert, whose face was a mask of patrician fury. Clarice and Michael were conspicuously absent. Indicted co-conspirators tend to avoid public appearances, Sophia had noted dryly. This wasn't family court. This was the United States District Court for the District of South Carolina. And today wasn't about custody. It was about the temporary restraining order freezing all Kingston assets and the emergency hearing for full legal and physical custody of Leo. But thanks to Marco Silva's anonymously delivered care package, the shadow of the FBI investigation hung over the room like a thunderhead. All rise for the Honorable Judge Evelyn Wilkins. Judge Wilkins was a woman in her 60s with a no-nonsense, gray bobbin eyes that missed nothing. She took the bench, surveyed the room, and didn't look pleased to be there. Counselors, this is an expedited hearing on the petitioner's motions. Let's be efficient. Ms. Grant, you may begin. Sophia stood, a picture of calm authority in a tailored navy suit. Thank you, Your Honor. Petitioner, Zoe Kingston, seeks a continuation of the temporary ex parte order, freezing the marital assets, and requests sole legal and physical custody of the minor child, Leo Kingston, with only supervised visitation for the respondent, based on evidence of gross neglect, financial malfeasance, and an environment detrimental to the child's welfare. She walked the judge through it, methodical and brutal. The pediatrician's report, entered as Exhibit A, photos of Leo taken the day after I brought him to the hotel, his thin frame, the fading bruises, Dr. Sharma's testimony via affidavit about prolonged nutritional deficiency and emotional neglect. Then came the financials, the bank statements showing the $30,000 monthly transfers and their immediate diversion. The forged signature on the $50,000 withdrawal, with my passport stamps proving I was overseas. Your Honor, Sophia said, holding up a blown-up copy of the forged document. This isn't a marital spat over spending. This is fraud. The respondent systematically stole funds specifically designated for his son's care and used them to support his extended family's lavish lifestyle and, as we now know from federal investigators, to potentially facilitate illicit activities. Richard Vance was on his feet. Objection, speculation, and prejudicial. The respondent is not charged with any crime. Sustained, Judge Wilkins said, but her eyes remained on Sophia. Counsel, stick to the facts of this hearing. Of course, Your Honor, Sophia said smoothly. The fact is, Leo Kingston was found malnourished and living in squalid conditions while his father used funds meant for his care on country club dues, luxury car payments, and transfers to his brother's business, which is now the subject of a federal money laundering probe. The respondent's priorities are clear, and they do not include the welfare of his child. She then called me to the stand. Vance's cross-examination was a blitzkrieg of character assassination. Mrs. Kingston, isn't it true that you voluntarily left your son for an entire year? Yes, for a temporary career assignment, an assignment you pursued for your own ambition, correct? I pursued it to provide for my family's future, and during that year, you relied entirely on your husband and his family for Leo's day-to-day care. Isn't that right? I provided substantial financial resources for that care. I said, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. But you weren't there, were you? He pressed, oozing faux sympathy. You missed bedtime stories, sick days, school plays. You abdicated the physical and emotional labor of motherhood, leaving it to the very people you now vilify. Sophia objected, argumentative. Sustained. Move on. Mr. Vance. He switched tactics. The so-called shed. My client has testified it was a playhouse Leo was fond of, that he often took snacks there to play. Is it possible you misinterpreted a child's imaginative play as neglect? He was eating mold-covered bread. I said, my anger cutting through the legal fog. He was underweight and covered in bruises. That's not imagination. That's a medical fact. Bruises all children get. Vance dismissed. And as for his weight, have you considered, Mrs. Kingston, that your sudden, dramatic re-entry into his life after a year's absence has caused him such anxiety that he stopped eating? That your actions are the cause of his distress? The gall of it took my breath away. Sophia objected again, more forcefully. Finally, Vance played his trump card. Mrs. Kingston, are you aware that your own mother, Eleanor Shaw, is prepared to testify that you have a history of being emotionally volatile, that you have a tendency to exaggerate conflicts and bear grudges? I felt the blood drain from my face. My mother, he was really going to use her. My mother is mistaken, I said, my voice tight. We shall see, Vance said with a smug smile, returning to his seat. Then, Sophia called her surprise witness. The petitioner calls Elise Chambers to the stand. A stir went through the courtroom. David's head snapped up. Robert Kingston leaned over and whispered furiously to Vance, who just shook his head, looking stunned. Elise, looking pale but determined, was sworn in. Sophia guided her through her history with David, establishing the timeline of the affair. And during this relationship, did Mr. Kingston ever discuss his son, Leo? Sophia asked. Yes, Elise said, her voice clear. He called him the ghost. He said he was a weird, quiet kid who was a drain. He said his mother thought Leo was damaged goods and that it was easier to keep him out of sight. A gasp went up from the gallery, which was packed with local reporters. Objection! Hearsay! Vance shouted. It's a statement of a party opponent. Your Honor. Sophia countered. Admissible. Overruled. Continue. Ms. Chambers, did Mr. Kingston ever discuss the finances? Specifically, the money his wife was sending from Singapore? Yes. He bragged about it. He said it was their Singapore slush fund. He said his brother Michael was using it to clean money from his business deals. He said it was ironic that his career-obsessed wife was funding everything without knowing. Chaos erupted. Vance was on his feet, objecting repeatedly. Reporters scribbled furiously. David looked like he was going to be sick. Robert Kingston had his head in his hands. Order! Judge Wilkins slammed her gavel. One more outburst, and I'll clear the gallery. When it was Vance's turn for cross, he went straight for the jugular. Ms. Chambers, you were Mr. Kingston's mistress. Is that correct? Yes. And he ended the relationship, didn't he? Left you heartbroken and vengeful? He lied to me, Elise said, her chin trembling, but held high. He used me, and now you're here, trying to get back at him by lying under oath. Isn't that true? I'm telling the truth. The truth as you see it. Perhaps. But isn't it also true that you have a financial interest in the outcome of this case? That you've been promised something by the petitioner? No, but the seed was planted. The scorned mistress, the unreliable witness, during a recess, as I splashed water on my face in the Stark bathroom. The door swung open. Clarice Kingston stood there, her face a cold mask of hatred, having somehow evaded the press. You vile, ungrateful little bitch, she hissed, her voice low and venomous. After everything we did for you, welcoming you into our family, and this is how you repay us? With lies and scandal? I turned to face her, my own anger cold. Hard stone. You locked my son in a shed. Clarice, you starved him while you spent my money on your facials and your charity galas. Her eyes glittered with malice. He was fine. He's always been a difficult, odd child. You were never a proper mother to him. Always with your head in your work. David needed a real wife, a supportive partner, not some corporate robot. He needed a mother who wouldn't treat his son like a shameful secret. I shot back. Where's Michael? Clarice? Enjoying his last moments of freedom before the FBI picks him up? Her composure cracked. A flicker of raw fear. You did that. You brought those people down on us. No, I said, drying my hands slowly. Michael did that. David did that. You did that. By being greedy. By being cruel. You're not a family. You're a cult of vanity. And it's over. I walked out, leaving her standing there, her reflection in the mirror looking suddenly old and brittle. The afternoon session was a blur of dry, financial testimony from a forensic accountant Sophia had hired. He laid out in excruciating detail the siphoning of funds, the pattern consistent with fraud. Then, Vance called my mother. She looked small and ancient in the witness box, refusing to meet my eyes. Vance led her gently. "Mrs. Shaw, you're Zoe's mother. You know her better than anyone. Would you say she has a tendency toward dramatics? To seeing slights where none are intended?" My mother's gaze was fixed on her lap. She has always been very strong-willed, and after her father and I divorced, she became suspicious, quick to anger. It was a masterclass in damning with faint praise. She painted a picture of me as a difficult, emotionally cold daughter who prized career over family. "And based on your observations," Vance continued, "would you say she is prone to exaggeration? To making mountains out of molehills?" My mother finally looked up, her eyes finding mine across the room. I saw the conflict there, the shame, the fear, but also the stubbornness, the fear of losing the money, the status by association. "Yes," she whispered, "I believe she can exaggerate." Sophia's cross-examination was brief and brutal. "Mrs. Shaw, did David Kingston give you $50,000 recently?" A stunned silence. My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Objection. Relevance," Vance boomed, "goes to bias and witness coercion." "Your Honor," Sophia said. "Overruled. Answer the question." "Mrs. Shaw, it was a gift." My mother stammered. "A token of appreciation." "A token of appreciation for what?" "For agreeing to testify against your daughter today." "No, it wasn't like that." "Did he ask you to speak to Zoe? To encourage her to drop her claims?" She was crying now. Silently. He said he wanted the family to be whole again. He said I could help. By convincing your daughter to stop saying he neglected his son? For $50,000? Sophia let the question hang in the tainted air. No further questions. My mother fled the stand. But the damage was done. Her credibility was in tatters. The bribe was obvious. In his closing, Vance painted me as a career-obsessed, vengeful woman using a child as a pawn to punish her husband for an affair and take his money. He painted Elise as a jealous liar and my mother as a victim of my manipulation. But Sophia closed with fire. "Your Honor, this isn't about an affair. This isn't about a mother who worked. This is about a child who was hidden away, starved, and neglected. A child whose own father called him a ghost." The respondent had one job, to care for the son his wife financially provided for. He failed, spectacularly and maliciously. He stole the food from his child's mouth to pay for his brother's Porsche and his mother's country club fees. He now tries to hide behind the victim's own mother, who he has bribed. He has shown no remorse, only a desire to avoid consequences. Leo Kingston has one safe harbor left, his mother. We asked the court to make that harbor permanent. Judge Wilkins didn't take long. Her face was grim. The evidence of neglect is compelling and largely uncontested. She began, her voice echoing in the silent room. "The pediatrician's report is particularly disturbing. The financial malfeasance, well, perhaps more properly the subject of the pending criminal matter, demonstrates a staggering breach of trust and priority." She looked at David, who had gone pale. "Mr. Kingston, the court finds that you have created an environment unfit for your child. The petitioner's request for sole legal and physical custody is granted. Pending a full custody trial." A muffled sob escaped me. Leo was safe. However, the judge continued, "The child's relationship with his father, however flawed, is not to be severed without due process. The respondent is granted supervised visitation, to be arranged through a court-appointed professional, twice monthly." David's shoulders slumped in a mix of defeat and minimal victory. "Regarding the marital assets," Judge Wilkins said, turning her steely gaze to Vance, "the temporary freeze is made permanent, pending equitable distribution. given the evidence of waste and dissipation. I am inclined to award the petitioner a significantly larger share. Furthermore, I am ordering the respondent to pay temporary child support and all of the petitioner's legal fees, effective immediately. She banged her gavel. We are adjourned. Full custody trial is set for 6 months from today. The courtroom erupted. Reporters surged forward. David and his father were surrounded by Vance, trying to push through the crowd. Sophia squeezed my arm. It's a good ruling. Zoe, a great ruling. He has to pay our fees. That'll cripple him. And supervised visitation. That's a slap in his face. But as I watched David shoot me a look of pure, unadulterated hatred over the scrum of reporters, I knew it wasn't over. The criminal case against Michael was looming. The civil suit for the stolen money was next. And David had just been publicly humiliated and financially gutted. He wouldn't take this lying down. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, I had won a major battle. Leo was legally mine to protect. And as the flashbulbs went off, capturing David's furious exit, I knew the world was finally seeing the Kingston family for what they were. The gilded image was cracked, and the truth, ugly and relentless, was pouring out. The victory in Judge Wilkins's courtroom felt hollow and heavy, like a shield made of lead. I had legal custody of Leo, but the gilded cage of the Kingston family had simply morphed into a fortress under siege. Their retaliation wasn't immediate. It was a slow, insidious poison. 2 days after the hearing, the social media posts began. An anonymous account, Charleston Truth Teller, started dripping venom. Grainy photos of me leaving a bar in Singapore with male colleagues. Captioned, working mom or party mom. Old. Out-of-context quotes from company profiles about my relentless drive were twisted into narratives of a cold, ambitious woman who prioritized boardrooms over bedtime. Then came the whispers, amplified by the local society blogs. Was the neglect really the father's fault? Or a desperate bid for attention from a boy whose mother abandoned him for a year? David was playing the long game, using the court of public opinion to soften me up for the full custody trial in 6 months. My mother, true to her new role, gave a tearful, carefully coached interview to a local paper about her heartbreak over the family rift, subtly painting me as unreasonable and David as a wronged, devoted father trying to keep his family together. The most damaging blow, however, came via certified mail, a thick envelope from Richard Vance's office. Inside was a motion to compel a psychiatric evaluation of Mead. More chillingly, of Leo. The grounds? Parental alienation syndrome and concerns over my mental stability given the trauma of my sudden reentry and my pattern of exaggeration and vindictiveness. It's a stall tactic, Sophia said, pacing her office. The motion crumpled in her hand, and a nasty one. They want to drag Leo through an evaluation, put him under a microscope, make him relive everything. They're banking on you folding to spare him that. I won't fold, I said, but my voice sounded thin. Leo was making progress, tiny increments of trust with his therapist, Dr. Evans. The thought of him being interrogated by some court-appointed stranger made me feel ill. We fight it, Marcus said from his perch by the window. He'd become a permanent fixture, my strategist and tech-savvy guardian. We counter with a motion of our own. We subpoena David's phone records, his emails. We dig into that Charleston Truth Teller account. It's got his fingerprints all over it. It's a shell account, probably routed through a VPN. Sophia sighed. We can try, but it'll take time. Time we might not have before this psychiatric eval is ordered. The pressure was a constant, suffocating weight. The legal fees, even with David ordered to pay, were staggering up front. The public whispers were isolating. I saw the glances at the grocery store, the hesitant smiles from former acquaintances who clearly weren't sure which side to believe. I was winning in court, but losing in the town I'd once called home. It was in this atmosphere of simmering dread that my phone rang with an unknown number bearing a 305 area code. Miami. Ms. Kingston. It was Marco Silva's smooth, unflappable voice. I trust you received my little gift to the federal authorities. My sources tell me the indictment against Michael Kingston is imminent. What do you want, Mr. Silva? I asked, my guard up. Our transaction was supposed to be over. A courtesy call. Your brother-in-law is panicking. Desperate men do stupid things. He has been making noises, reckless noises, about me, about our arrangements. This is problematic. I can't control what Michael does, but you can influence the narrative, Silva said, his tone turning razor sharp. The FBI will offer him a deal. Less time in exchange for cooperation. He will be tempted to offer them someone bigger. Me. I need him to understand that would be a very, very poor choice. A cold dread pooled in my stomach. You want me to talk to him? Threaten him? I want you to make him see reason. The evidence against him is overwhelming. He should take his medicine like a man and be quiet. Remind him that his family's troubles are currently limited to financial crimes and ugly divorce proceedings. They could become more physical if he becomes a talker. His wife is lovely. His son, Ethan, is what? 8? The threat was as clear as crystal. He was using me as his messenger, implicating me further in his world. I'm not your errand boy. I hissed. You are a woman who wants her son safe and her husband ruined. Silva replied calmly. I am providing the means for the latter. I am simply asking for a small assurance in return. A conversation. Or I could have a conversation with David instead. Perhaps about how his wife is conspiring with known criminals. How would that look in family court? He had me cornered. The specter of David using any contact with Silva against me, of twisting it into a story of my unstable alliances, was real. One conversation, I said through gritted teeth. That's it. Wise. He's at the King Street Club. He goes there every afternoon to drink away his fear. He's there now. The line went dead. I told Sophia and Marcus. Sophia was horrified. Zoe, no, this is witness intimidation. You could be charged as an accessory. And if I don't, Silva goes to David, or worse, makes good on his threat against Tiffany and Ethan. I argued, a frantic edge to my voice. I'm not delivering a threat. I'm just having a conversation with my brother-in-law, expressing my concern for his family's safety. Marcus put a hand on my shoulder. I'm going with you. You're not walking into that snake pit alone. The King Street Club was an old money bastion of dark wood and hushed disapproval. Michael sat at the far end of the bar, a half-empty glass of amber liquid in front of him, already looking like a ghost of his former cocky self. His suit was rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. He didn't look surprised to see me, just weary. Come to gloat? He slurred. No. I slid onto the stool, next to him, Marcus taking a seat a discreet distance away, watching the room. I came to talk. We have nothing to talk about. You've won. You and your shark lawyer. You're taking everything. Not everything. Michael, just what's mine. And what was stolen from my son. He snorted, taking a long drink. Your son. The weird little kid who started all this. The rage was instant, white hot. I gripped the edge of the bar to steady myself. He didn't start this. Your greed did. David's neglect did. He turned to look at me, his expression one of genuine, drunken confusion. It was just money. Zoe. Family money. You were off having your big adventure. We were here, holding things together. David was stressed. Mom and Dad had expectations. The money. It made things easier, smoother. Easier for you to buy a new Porsche? For Clarice to redecorate the pool house? While my son was eating moldy bread in a shed, my voice was low, shaking with fury. Tell me, Michael, was it smoother when you were laundering cash for Marco Silva? All the color drained from his face. The glass in his hand trembled. You don't know what you're talking about. I have the files. Michael, the spreadsheets, the audio. The FBI has them too. Silva sent them to me. He stared at me, his drunken bravado evaporating, leaving raw, primal fear. He gave them to you? Why? Because you're messy. You're a liability. You talk too much when you drink. I leaned closer, dropping my voice. He wanted me to give you a message. The indictment is coming. They'll offer you a deal. A shorter sentence if you talk. About him. Michael's breath hitched. He looked like a trapped animal. He wants you to know. I continued, the words tasting like ash, that if you talk, the trouble won't stop with you. It will find Tiffany. It will find Ethan. You taking your medicine quietly is the only way to keep them safe. Tears welled in his bloodshot eyes. Not tears of remorse, but of self-pity and terror. He can't. He wouldn't. Do you really want to bet your son's life on that? He was silent for a long moment, staring into his drink. The entitled, blustering brother-in-law was gone, replaced by a broken, scared man facing the abyss. What do you want from me, Zoe? I want you to do the one decent thing you've ever considered, I said, standing up. Take the fall for what you did. Leave David and your parents out of the money laundering. But when the FBI asks about the money I sent, the money David gave you, you tell the truth. Every damn cent. You tell them it was for you. For your failed, dirty business. That David was just funneling it. That he knew what it was for. You give them David on the fraud. You keep Silva's name out of it. That's the deal. He looked up at me, a flicker of his old arrogance returning. And why would I do that? Throw my own brother under the bus? Because David threw your nephew into a shed. I said, my voice deathly quiet. And because if you don't, Silva will make you disappear. And I will make sure every newspaper in the country knows you died a penniless, traitorous fraud. Your choice, Michael. Prison with your mouth shut. Or a coffin. I turned and walked away. My legzakken. Marcus fell into step beside me. A solid, silent presence. You okay? He asked once we were outside in the humid air. No, I whispered. I just threatened a man with his family's murder. You repeated a threat from a criminal to save your own family. He corrected gently. There's a difference. But the line felt blurry, smudged with the grime of their world. The dominoes fell quickly after that. The next week, Michael Kingston was arrested by federal agents on charges of wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. The news was the lead story on every local channel. His perp walk, disheveled and handcuffed, was a seismic shock to Charleston society. As Sophia predicted, he was offered a deal, and, as I gambled, he took it. The call from the assistant U.S. attorney, a sharp woman named Daniels, came 2 days later. Ms. Kingston, your brother-in-law is singing like a canary about the money flows from your husband. He's provided records, emails, everything. He's implicating David in the fraud, directly. Said David knew the money was for business expenses and actively helped funnel it. What about Silva? I asked, my heart hammering. Silva. Daniels sounded cautious. Michael's been very specific. His criminal associates are unnamed offshore entities. He's not giving us any names on that front. It's like he's terrified of something. Or someone. Good. That I thought with a grim satisfaction. He'd taken the message to heart. But he's giving us David. Daniels confirmed. Enough for an indictment. We'll be moving on that soon. I'd prepare yourself. Ms. Kingston, this is about to get very ugly for your husband. It got ugly faster than anyone expected. That evening, as I was reading to Leo in our new, small rented house, a secure, unlisted location Sophia had arranged, my phone exploded with calls. The last one was from Elise. Turn on the news, she said, her voice breathless. Channel 4. Now, I clicked on the TV. It was a press conference. Robert and Clarice Kingston stood behind a podium, their faces drawn but defiant. Robert cleared his throat, his voice trembling with faux sorrow. It is with heavy hearts that we address the recent troubles facing our family. He began. Our son, Michael, has made terrible mistakes. As his parents, we are devastated, and we pray for his redemption. However, we have been made aware of even more disturbing allegations involving our other son, David. The camera cut to David, standing slightly apart, his face a mask of stunned betrayal. It appears, Robert continued, his voice hardening, that David not only mismanaged family funds but may have been aware of, and possibly involved in, Michael's illicit activities. We cannot, in good conscience, defend what we do not understand. Therefore, effective immediately, David is no longer an employee of Kingston Holdings. We are fully cooperating with authorities and will be conducting our own internal audit. Our primary concern now is for our grandson, Leo, and ensuring he is shielded from this tragedy. They were throwing David to the wolves, cutting him loose to save the family brand. It was a breathtaking act of cannibalistic self-preservation. David's face on screen, watching his own parents disown him to save themselves, was a portrait of utter, world-shattering shock. The golden child had been cast out. The final blow came an hour later. A special news bulletin. David Kingston had been taken into federal custody for questioning in connection with the money laundering probe. I sat on the couch, Leo asleep against my side, watching the looped footage of David being led into a federal building. His jacket over his head. There was no satisfaction in it, just a deep, weary emptiness. The man I'd married was gone, replaced by this pathetic, ruined figure. The family I'd tried to belong to had eaten its own. My phone rang again. It was David's lawyer, Richard Vance. "Zoe," he said, his voice stripped of its usual arrogance, replaced by a cold, professional urgency. "David wants to talk. He's ready to deal." What could he possibly offer? I asked. "Numb. Full custody," Vance said. "No fight. He'll sign over his parental rights. Terminate them entirely." The words hung in the air. It was everything I wanted. A clean break. Leo, forever safe from his influence. In exchange for what? I asked, suspicion dousing any spark of hope. In exchange for you not pressing private charges for the forgery. In exchange for a statement to the prosecutors that you believe he was manipulated by Michael, that he was unaware of the criminal source of the funds, a statement that might lessen his sentence. And in exchange for you agreeing to a sealed settlement, he gets to keep what's left of his personal assets after the fines. A chance to start over. I was silent for a long time, watching Leo's peaceful face. This was the choice: justice or peace. A protracted, public legal battle that would drag Leo's name through the mud for years, or a quiet, private resolution that let a guilty man walk with a lighter sentence but guaranteed my son's future. "I need to speak to my lawyer," I said finally. "Of course, but the offer is on the table, and it expires the moment he's formally charged." I called Sophia. I laid out the deal. She let out a long breath. "From a legal standpoint for Leo, it's a gift. Termination of parental rights is almost impossible to get otherwise. It would mean David has no claim, ever, no visitation, no say in his life. Leo would be free of him completely. And from a moral standpoint," I asked, my voice small, "that's your call. Zoe, he stole from you. He neglected your child. He deserves to go to prison. But putting him there means a trial. It means testifying. It means Leo testifying. Maybe. It means years of appeals, of headlines. Is your vengeance worth that price for Leo?" I looked at my son, finally sleeping soundly, finally gaining weight, finally starting to laugh at silly cartoons. He deserved peace. He deserved a childhood untainted by courtrooms and headlines. But he also deserved to know that the people who hurt him were held accountable. It was an impossible choice. The weight of it, the finality, pressed down on me. This was the cost of truth. Not a triumphant victory, but a messy, compromised peace. I had won. I had my son. I had evidence of their crimes. I had shattered their world. Now I had to decide what to build from the ruins, and how much of the past I was willing to bury to secure the future. The conference room at Vance Lattimore smelled of lemon polish and quiet desperation. 6 months had passed since David's arrest. 6 months of legal maneuvers, postponed hearings, and a slow, grinding negotiation conducted through lawyers like a war fought by proxy. I sat on one side of the polished mahogany table with Sophia. On the other side sat Richard Vance, looking older and wearier, and David, my husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, that was a ghost of his former self. The expensive tan had faded. His tailored suit hung loosely on him. The arrogant glint in his eye was extinguished, replaced by a hollow, hunted look. The federal indictment for conspiracy to commit wire fraud loomed over him, a sword of Damocles held by a prosecutor who was less than sympathetic to a man who'd stolen from his own child. "Shall we begin?" Sophia said, her voice crisp in the tense silence. "We have the agreement as drafted, full, permanent, and irrevocable termination of David Michael Kingston's parental rights to Leo James Kingston. In exchange, Zoe Kingston will provide a statement to the U.S. Attorney's Office indicating her belief, based on information presented during discovery, that David was largely unaware of the illicit origins of the funds funneled through Michael's company and was acting under familial coercion. She will also not pursue separate civil charges for forgery. All marital assets will be divided per the attached schedule, with Zoe receiving the primary residence, 70% of the remaining liquid assets, and full ownership of her retirement accounts. David retains his personal vehicle and the contents of his now unfrozen personal account, subject to federal seizure. All parties agree to a mutual non-disparagement clause. She slid a copy of the 50-page document across the table. It was a surrender document. David was signing away his son to avoid a longer prison sentence. David stared at the stack of paper as if it were a venomous snake. His hands, resting on the table, trembled slightly. "And the custody trial?" he asked, his voice raspy from disuse. "Will be vacated upon the signing of this and the judge's approval of the termination." Sophia said, "Leo will be legally and solely Zoe's. You will have no rights to visitation, no rights to decision-making, no legal claim to him whatsoever. It will be as if you never existed as his father." David flinched, as if struck. He looked at me, a final, fleeting glimpse of the man I'd once loved buried under the layers of resentment and ruin. "You're really going to do this? Erase me completely?" The question hung in the air. For a moment, I saw not the monster, but the broken man who'd made himself into one. The pathos was almost compelling. Then I thought of the shed, the moldy bread, the word ghost. "You did that yourself, David," I said, my voice calm and final. "The day you decided